Greetings, fellow thinkers and drinkers and Rush fans. Some breaking news. Or at least it was breaking when I recorded this. Will probably be less breaking by the time you're watching this. And I never thought I would utter those words, breaking news, when recording a Rush video. But it just goes to show, life can be full of surprises. Now, it'll by now be a surprise to nobody that Geddy and Alex have announced that they're going back on tour for what would be Rush's 50-something anniversary. The reasons they've given for this twofold. That it's been 10 years since the R40 tour and the retirement of the band, and 5 years since the sad passing of Neil. They've both effectively said, I'm paraphrasing, but I don't think I'm doing anybody injustice, they are just itching to play this material again. And obviously, time marches remorselessly on, and nobody's getting any younger. May not be a case of now or never, but it's not going to be too far from that. They've also, I think, strategically and carefully and wisely announced it as a tribute to Neil. Speaking of which, it leaves a rather large hole in the entity that is Rush, doesn't it? And they've both said, how do you replace the irreplaceable? Well, they can't go out without a drummer. And they have selected Anika Nilles, German-born, and I don't know where she's based, drummer, of whom I have to admit I know absolutely nothing, whose name I had never heard prior to this announcement. Now, generally in life, I do try to adhere to the maxim that assumption is the mother of all fuck-ups. However, in this case, I think we're fairly safe to assume that Anika knows her way around a drum kit. Otherwise, we would not be talking about her in this context. I also think it's fairly safe to assume that there must be some pretty strong musical and probably personal chemistry between the three of them. Or again, we would not be talking about her in this context. I will spend some time checking her out, musically that is. And yes, well, I don't know what to say. I was actually taken a little bit unawares and by surprise at this announcement. Now, I know, every time Alex or Geddy are interviewed, somebody always fires in the question, will you guys ever get together? Will you ever play again? And, they're practiced pros, not just musically, but in dealing with interview questions. And I have learned over the years to ignore, cryptic responses or evasions or deflections. For inevitably, I find that you tend to read into them what you want to read into them. I've heard some other people say they weren't surprised at this, and I totally accept that they may not have been. I'd come to accept, I think, that was that as far as Rush was concerned, and I'd made my peace with it as a fan. And if I'm being honest, I have, and I had, and still do have, a lot of respect for their dignified silence on the subject, as it were, that it would never be the same without the three of them. And they seem to have got to the point where they were happy to let it go and for the band to be remembered for what it was. And from my point of view as a fan, as I said, I was most happy, or I'd resigned myself to that. So this did come as a bit of a shock, I have to say. I don't know really how I feel about it. Two schools of thought, really, isn't it? Wow, it's going to be great to see them again, one last time. And the other school of thought is, can they still do it? Should they be doing it? Now, I'm not for one moment suggesting there's any disrespect involved in this. They've cleared this with Neil's family, and that it's it's all. I'm 100% sure it's all above board, and there's going to be no bitterness, recrimination, hard feelings from anybody. So it comes down to can they still do it? And it's been 10 years since they've been on the road, and been a long time, but I can still vaguely remember that there is nothing that can prepare you for those 80 minutes on the rugby field. Like 80 minutes on the rugby field. You can do as much training and gym work as you want, but playing live, being on the road like that it's hard work. I'm sure they wouldn't be doing this if they didn't feel that they were up to it, obviously. But still, I did have the thought, so I thought I'd share it. And I'm still a little unsure. They've already announced the tour dates, or some provisional tour dates. Excuse me. Was it 12 shows in North America, or maybe one in Mexico? Now, I'm assuming if those dates sell out, as one assumes they will, that will get extended. Whether they come to Europe or not is another thing. I'd be pissed off if they don't. It won't quite make up for them not bringing the R40 tour to Europe, but it would be close. It would be. I don't think they can poke us in the eye twice consecutively, can they? Who knows? But we're getting way ahead of ourselves. Yes, it'd be interesting to see how these, what the response is for these shows which have been announced. And the more I think about it, I think the more I'm slightly coming to terms with the idea. I'd love to see them again, were it possible. But obviously, it's going to be no difficulty. YouTube's going to be full of videos from the first to the last show, and there will doubtless be a professionally recorded show and the unavoidable DVD, Blu-ray, whatever it is, release to follow. And providing they're doing well, why not? Be interesting to see the band, not just with Anika, but they've also talked about bringing on a keyboard player to free Geddy up a bit, so he can just be the bassist and the vocalist. Yeah, why not? It's not Rush. If Neil had still been here, I don't think they would have done that, because that was just too much. The three of them were just too much. The core identity of the band. But now Neil's not there, and it is a tribute to him. Maybe it just gives them a little bit more freedom. They also talked about, perhaps going some deep cuts. Well, obviously, yes. Curious as anybody else to even to speculate what that might be, that might entail. But they've always been quite good, actually, Rush, at pulling the rabbits out the hat. And a deep cut doesn't have to be from 1975. There's a plethora of stuff from Presto I'd love to hear. Just one suggestion. An album they could really dig some stuff out of. I'd love to hear that. And I'm sure you all have your wishes and preferences as well. So, no doubt more information will be forthcoming. Was it summer next year? So no doubt we'll all be queuing up to give our thoughts once the tour gets underway. But no, something of a surprise, I have to say. Wasn't expecting to have to comment on any new developments in the Rush camp. I think I'm pleasantly surprised. We'll see how these things develop. Anyway, those are my initial thoughts. Please feel free to comment, to share, to subscribe, to like, and all those good things. And comme toujours, merci pour votre indulgence. À la prochaine. Maçhonquèrre.